It's a rare thing for me to look at Lego, or as I call it, Danish plastic, these days, but I certainly haven't forgotten about the company in question. This is a review of a new set that caught my eye, because historically, I've only ever seen the company model diesel or electric locomotives as part of railway sets for the Lego City line. By the way, I know that this set actually has the word train in its title, but I'm referring to it as the vintage steam locomotive because, in all honesty, one of my major pet peeves is seeing steam locomotives being incorrectly referred to as trains, and how common that sort of thing has become. Locomotives and trains are not the same thing. A train is a connected line of passenger coaches or freight wagons, or sometimes you could get both in the same train, hauled or propelled by a locomotive, which is a separate self-propelled vehicle. There's also a different kettle of fish in the form of rail cars, or in this case, a multiple unit, which are essentially coaches that can move by themselves without needing a locomotive. Thinking back to rail cars for a moment, I personally think that you can't really call these things a train, especially when it's just one coach. Anyway, the matter of terminology aside, this video is not sponsored by Lego, and I bought the set in question with my own money. For the record, this review is made by a dedicated railfan, but I understand that the vintage steam locomotive is mainly designed for a younger/more casual audience. The vintage steam locomotive, set number 60511, was released on the 1st of June 2026, though I wasn't aware of its existence until 9 days after release, when I was randomly browsing TradeMe one night. The set costs 170 New Zealand dollars at full price, though I picked it up from Farmers, that's a more upmarket chain of department stores in this country, during their 2026 Winter Warmers sale, and only paid $153 as they were offering Danish plastic sets at 10% off. What follows is a stop-motion building time-lapse thing for the locomotive and tender. To be honest, I didn't have the patience to do the stop-motion thing for any other parts of the set. Anyone would think this cat is desperate for 15 minutes of fame. As for what's included in the set, there's an 060 tender engine, one passenger coach, a short platform, and a short length of track that has a ramp at one end and a buffer stop at the other. Of course, the rolling stock runs on standard Lego track, and you can get more use out of the steam locomotive and her accompanying coach if you've got enough track to make a full loop. I recommend being careful when putting segments of Lego track together, as the sleepers have rather sharp edges. Thinking back to the locomotive herself, I'm of the opinion that she is aesthetically pleasing, for the most part. She doesn't appear to be based on any specific real-life prototype, but in my eyes, looks vaguely European, more specifically German or Danish. She's got the same driving wheel design that I've seen in previous sets, such as the 2023 era Hogwarts Express, and if I recall correctly, this wheel design first appeared on the Emerald Knight set of 2009. There are only really two aspects of the locomotive's design that bother me somewhat. The first one is the smokebox door being recessed into the smokebox for whatever reason, and the second one is the unrealistic height difference between each half of the boiler. Once I noticed this, I couldn't unsee it. This locomotive is not motorised as standard, although you can equip her with the powered up gear if you want to. I'm not going to do that myself, but each to their own. For the scenes in this video where the steamer was moving, propulsion was provided by the bizarre Arctic Explorer locomotive from set number 60470. As is the norm with LEGO trains, the coach from set 60511 has a removable roof. Indeed, you can't get the minifigures into or out of the coach any other way, as the ruddy thing doesn't have actual functioning doors. In saying that, I don't mind this coach's overall design, partly because it reminds me of the old wooden coaches in New Zealand, which have open balconies at both ends. More specifically, the LEGO coach reminds me of this little four-wheeler known as D26. Come to think of it, I like how two of the included minifigures represent a mother and son, with the latter being really excited to see a steam locomotive. That kind of reminds me of how I was at a younger age, and as an aside, I would encourage parents to take their kids to see, or ride behind, a steam locomotive in person, as opposed to letting them gawk at brain rot programs on a phone for goodness knows how long. Thinking back to the new LEGO steamer, I also noticed that she actually has a number, 317. Apparently, this is a reference to the locomotives in the My Own Train range from the early 2000s, but the number mainly reminds me of the UK's Class 317 electric multiple unit. One last thing before moving on to the conclusion. I noticed that the signal included with set 60511 bears a resemblance to the old German semaphore signals, which I associate primarily with the Niedertalbahn route in Train Sim World. In closing, I'm generally happy with this new vintage steam locomotive from LEGO. For one thing, she's considerably more affordable than bigger sets like the previously mentioned Arctic Explorer train. While I think the steamer set is decent overall, I am simultaneously of the opinion that it could have been improved by adding a second coach, extending the existing coach's roof to fully cover the balconies, adding the standard magnet coupler on the locomotive's front end, and shortening the gap between the locomotive and tender. All things considered, it's still good to see LEGO making any kind of railway set these days. Hopefully you found this review of the new LEGO City vintage steam locomotive informative, and what I would recommend to potential customers, if they're just starting out in the world of Danish plastic, is to pick up set number 60511 along with enough track packs to make a full loop. I dare say that the set would make for a good birthday or Christmas present if you've got kids who happen to be interested in trains. But hopefully not to the level of obsession demonstrated by Animotion. No wait, that's not right. Hopefully not to the level of obsession demonstrated by the I Like Trains kid from Astif movie. One last thing before signing off. Part of me wishes that LEGO would make a dedicated trains line again, perhaps featuring sets on par with the Crocodile Locomotive of 2020 or the Orient Express of 2023. And maybe they could be based on locomotives like the London and North Eastern Railway A4 class, or perhaps something more obscure like the New Zealand Railway's JA class. Speaking of railways in New Zealand,